Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today, Cody Kessel from Team USA. Welcome to Bump Set Chat, a podcast for volleyball professionals, players, and coaches to come on and share their stories, advice, and experience. And today I'm super excited from Team USA and Berlin Recycles, Cody Kessel. Welcome.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. All right, so the way we start the things off on the podcast is we start off with 3 random questions. So are you ready?
Shoot.
All right.
Fire.
So when you played COD, what was your go-to loadout?
Oh, I was kind of like a silencer M16 kind of vibe, medium range, double tap back in the day. Dead silence because I was rocking the Turtle Beach headphones. So that was one of the go-tos for search and destroy.
All right, there we go.
Claymore guy.
Yes, the Claymores. I love the Claymores. Yes. All right, so this next question's from Eric Shoji. So he knew you were coming on. He wanted to know, what is the story with the owls?
Oh yeah, that's a good question, E. So it traces back to in the German league. For 2 years, there was a kind of a free streaming platform that came on and got the rights for the men's league, and they started doing a bunch of, like a Monday variety show, and just really trying to hype up the sport in a lot of different ways. And for 2 years, they basically with volunteers streamed all the matches and just kind of jerry-rigged it together. And they always would put out a bunch of memes and gossip about the players, and always were kind of stirring the pot in fun ways. And I got injured with my ankle injury when I had surgery, and I gave some interview to, and it was also in this COVID time, all these teams, you get COVID and the team would be out for 3 weeks. And so it was like a dead time. And so the reporters were just asking, oh, let's talk to Cody. He just had surgery or something. He was out with this injury. And she was asking me all these questions. At the very end, I said, oh, yeah. And, she said, what do you lean on in difficult times? And I said, oh, music, friends, family. I just got this great album by Trevor Hall, a musician I like. And he talks about owl medicine, which in Colorado, it's about knowing yourself, and this concept of, the owl is a symbol of intuition and wisdom, but especially like self-awareness and self-knowledge. But the title in German made it sound like I was in some owl cult. The title of the article was like, Cody Kessel believes in owl medicine, which is like from Colorado and from this like Lakota tradition, what I was talking about. But it came off, all the Germans were like, okay. And so they did this funny meme that I was in this cult, and I kind of embraced it because they've always been this kind of spirit animal for me. And then, I came back from an injury quickly, helped win some matches, and then the owl memes, the owl emoji, everything. And then I just became the owl. So now I'm the owl of the German league. It's like the funny nickname there. And so I just keep running with it.
Excellent. All right. And final question: what's the most interesting place you've ever played a match in?
Novi Urengoy, which is I played against Erik there. It was north of the Arctic Circle, in the middle of you fly to Moscow and then you fly another 3 hours. And it's just, this Gazprom mining town. That's where Fackel plays. And it was just one of the most far out places I'd ever been. I think, unless you're playing volleyball, I don't know any other Americans that have been there really, or why you would go there unless you're an oil executive person.
Yeah.
So it was just this kind of wild, otherworldly place to go to. The sun's up for like 2 hours at that time. And then you're on the court against one of the best volleyball teams in the world.
Wow.
There to entertain the minors. So that was NOVY space URENGOY, Novi Urengoy, where Fackel played their matches. Erik was out there for a couple of years.
That
so
is
he could also
wild. I'm just picturing like a Mad Max environment,
Yeah, it was just Arctic tundra, and then they found Gazprom finds oil there in 1974 or whatever. They're like, let's build a small little city here. Let's bring some workers in. It was just like, whoa.
Wow. All right. That sounds amazing, actually.
Yeah, that one sticks into the mind. Of course, there have been other more very beautiful places, Aspen, the Motherlode, Outrigger, but that one is just like, wow, that's
a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So welcome to the pod. So how's the season going so far?
It's going great. We got put into Berlin Recycling has been in the Champions League. Gosh, I want to say for 8 or 10 years. Not really sure on that, but we've worked our way into the first cup of drawing of lots, and we drew this year. You're supposed to get, as in a first spot because we've been in the Champions League and done well. We've made the quarterfinals all the last 4 years or the last 3 years. I think the COVID year we had to stop and maybe we didn't make it, but for a team like us to make the quarterfinals all those 3 years is a pretty big success. We got put in the first draw and we drew Piacenza, the really gnarly new team, in, and Halkbank Ankara. And we made it out of this group of death. We beat
Wow.
Tour and qualified and ended up falling to Trentino, but making the quarterfinal was the goal for our group. We also won the German Cup. We won the German preseason cup, and we came into the playoffs at first, but tomorrow we have a big battle against the Lunenburg. So we've achieved all our goals so far, and it's been a great season.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's excellent. And now for those that don't know, so there's the German Cup, and then there's a sort of
Yes,
a European sort of championship you guys are playing for, right? Or you play
that's
for?
correct. Yeah, we play three concurrent seasons in a way. The cup is a single elimination kind of March Madness style. It starts even usually in some leagues with the second and third league teams, and then you get to the first league teams. Um, but that gives a chance to teams to, if you win 2 or 3 matches, all of a sudden you might be playing in the cup final in front of 10,000 fans.
Oh
And
wow.
in Germany, they do a big joint men's and women's final, and it was in front of almost 11,000 fans this year. It's a really amazing spectacle and
Ah,
event.
that's awesome.
So we took that home again. Yes, this yeah, my third, and then yeah, going for the title, and then of course the European League on top of that. Summers.
And now how many years have you been playing in Germany?
Ooh, this is my eighth year in Germany, my ninth year overseas. I started over in Switzerland as an opposite hitter. I got recruited or out of Princeton, had caught the attention of an agent. Was just hitting a lot of, killing a lot, putting away a lot of balls on the right side and physical. And that was kind of enough to get me my first look overseas. So I was really lucky and had a very, very difficult first season in Switzerland, but then got picked up my second year in Lunenburg, which is where Joe Worsley and so a lot of other Americans have played over the years recently too, have gone through there. And it's the team we actually play tomorrow.
Oh
And I
wow.
was there for 3 seasons, and then I got picked up by the German champion Berlin, and I've been here. This is now my fifth season.
And this leads to another question Erik actually gave me. He said, what is you've been there for many years now. What's the volleyball vibe around Berlin?
It's amazing. We have the highest average attendance in all of Europe, and it matches at Max Schmeling every single one, even if we're playing a bottom league team. It's just a huge volleyball celebration and event, and a beautiful gym to play in. And for the bigger matches, we get 8, 9, 10,000 fans in there, and it's
Wow.
just electric. I remember playing against them the first time, just going, "This is a dream," and now it's where all my home matches are. So,
Excellent. And now, let's go back. When did you discover volleyball? When did you start playing?
yeah, I was raised in a volleyball family. My dad, John Kessel, was a director at USA Volleyball for more than 30
Oh
years.
wow.
He served in a number of different roles, but the last 15 years, mostly grassroots, coaching education, beach, disabled. He was at various Olympics in various roles. I think one of the first 6 employees at USA Volleyball back in
Crap.
the day. So I also grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was a young kid, I was around these amazing players, that they were training in the training site Colorado Springs, and anything they could kind of do to have a little escape on the weekends. We were always lending our car out to Don Sujo. Logan Tom came and babysat my sister and I sometimes just because that was the world we were living in.
Yeah.
My buddy Mitch Beal, Doug's son, we grew up playing together, and I was just around the sport and USA Volleyball since forever.
So you had no
And
chance. Volleyball was
I
going
had
to
no
be.
chance at all. And so the fact that I mean, also the fact that because I would play in the summers, and I
Hmm.
liked to play. I started playing when I was competing. I was at various summer camps and had exposure at an early age. But my first tournament was on the grass doubles with my dad when I was 12 in Vail. There was a father-son, father-daughter tournament, and we got started with that. And But I played lacrosse and tennis and other sports until I was 17. It wasn't until my senior year of high school that I said, okay, I really want to go all in on volleyball. Did my first full year of indoor club volleyball, you know, high school, and then tried to get recruited. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a long
Wow.
answer to your short question. I
That's
started,
hey,
been
no, this is
around
your
it forever,
podcast.
and
Every answer, there's no limit. It's your podcast.
yeah. So those guys, I mean, Clay Stanley, Reed Pretty, Gabe Gardner. I mean, we would go to these clinics and random community days at the Olympic Training Center, and then the sitting athletes too were, the men's and women's team moved out of there 2008, 2012 ish, maybe before that, and then but the sitting team was there too. So Eric Duda, Katie Holloway, just they were just kind of idols and friends, and
Yeah.
I mean, not friends, we were kids, but definitely idols and role models.
Nice. Yeah, we were talking a little bit earlier about just the volleyball community and the sport itself. Like you were just talking about, you and your dad were playing doubles. It's one of those sports where, you can play whether it's your daughter, your son, you can play competitively and all through life too.
It's a lifetime sport, and it's super special that we have that in our game. Totally. And like you said, how many sports can you not only co-ed, but so many formats, grass, snow, beach,
Right.
fours, doubles, triples, sixes, different costumes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's
We
just
out here in
an
the East, there's
awesome.
a mud volleyball tournament in the summer
Yeah,
and
there you go.
it's crazy. Yeah. And now, what was the hook volleyball had on you that, I guess you had no choice because volleyball was, you were immersed in it, but did it have a
Yeah.
hook on you or that didn't come until you were really like 17 or so?
Yeah, I do look back on um what was that? That's a really good question. I mean, besides just having no chance and just being immersed in it, just the dynamism and the physicality of the men's. I think when I first saw high level men's volleyball, even at the Olympic Training Center or the old World League days, they played in the World Arena. It was just another level that I had. And until you see it live, people say it a lot, but it's just really special
Yeah.
um, to see that level played. But then the hook, as we spoke about too, also was the community. I think more the what really brought me through and set me on the path of being a pro was the summers from 18 to 22 that I spent, playing grass and then very quickly into beach in the Colorado doubles scene.
Mm-hmm.
And that community that not only taught me how to really play at the next level, but they kind of raised me. And of course, there's a fun atmosphere around doubles, and it was just that was the community. And then with Princeton, luckily, I was able to. Well, just volleyball ended up opening so many doors for
Yeah.
me before that and after that to travel to meet people, and that's just been my way to know the whole world.
Nice. That's
So
awesome. And now, okay, so, what is, speaking of the hook, what's more rewarding? You hitting around a triple block or taking somebody down one on one and just straight up roofing him?
I love the solo stuff. I mean, it's just there's something so final about it. Yeah, I
Nice. All right. So, you said you went to Princeton. What was your path to Princeton?
oh man, that was um, pretty wild in the sense that when I graduated high school, I did a very rigorous high school program, the International Baccalaureate program. It was, it kind of sets you up to finish college in 3 years if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Worked really hard with my studies. And back when I was in 2015, 2010, when I graduated high school, there were maybe 30 Division I men's teams around, and just, half less or half than less of the scholarship opportunities today for guys. So and even now you pretty much have like unless you are one of the top 10 or 15 guys that's getting some kind of scholarship look, you probably have to rely on the rest of your studies. So that's my message to all the kids out there. Always stay working hard with your studies, of course, but um, I ended up deciding to take a gap year, and I
Yeah.
also grew very late. That decision was guided by Carl McGowan. My dad was saying, "Hey, Cody, kind of late, has fallen in love with volleyball. He's 17. He wants to go play at the next level." And I wasn't good yet, and I
Yeah.
was maybe 6'1", 6'2", and this gap year, which is more common in Europe, to just stop, do something, volunteer, start an internship, do
Yeah.
something else before to college. We didn't really consider that. And so I was the only one in my whole class of that, wasn't headed off to college, and it felt really weird.
Yeah.
But I, I coached, I played, I trained more, and I kind of sent out all these recruiting emails. And then I grew a couple inches, and that helped a lot too. And this really roundabout way, I got invited on an unofficial visit to Princeton. I go over all this in my book, but
Yeah.
yeah, I got invited on an unofficial visit, which is, you pay your own way out there. And because you do that, I hopped in really quickly with an open gym with the guys, played a little bit. And that was in September, of that year. And one of the captains was like, "Oh yeah," coach asked him later, how was Kessel, because he came and watched me at JOs and he was like, "You were not good." And I was not good. I was, he's like, "Oh yeah, your dad said, hey, come over and watch my kid." And he's like, "Okay, well, he can come on a visit, I guess." But I was a really late bloomer
Yeah.
to volleyball, and that put me like very low on the list of outside hitters. But the other ones decided to go to Stanford, decided to go to Harvard, decided to go to
Yeah.
other places, and all of a sudden I got one of these likely letters, which is like not a golden ticket, but in terms of athletic scholarships, unless you do something really bad, it was a guarantee, more or less a guarantee of admission, and it changed my whole life.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
especially after spending a year being an intern with an unpaid intern with my dad,
Yeah.
volunteering for various volleyball projects and learning through that stuff, and then just kind of doing my own thing and just taking a break.
Yeah.
I was pretty burnt out after high school, and it ended up being this incredible thing that totally changed my life. So.
Nice. So yeah, so there's two things off of that. One is like you were talking about taking that gap year. How many
Yeah.
17 or 18-year-olds know what they want to do for the rest of their lives?
The male prefrontal cortex is nowhere close to being ready
Right.
for that kind of thing. So yeah, it's not fully developed. And so of course there's lots of ways to go about it, but it was an amazing choice for me, and gave me not only a taste of the real kind of working world and what that was like,
Yeah.
and how precious the chance to be in school and study and play it was, but
Yeah.
just get you a little bit more ready for
Nice. And when you went to Princeton, something I also talked to a lot of the coaches and other players are about is when you go to college, typically you're that alpha kid that's coming from playing in club where you're starting, and now you're going to college where it's a different mentality you may have to get used to. You may be the role player, you may just be that's a hard thing to adjust to.
Totally. My advice there, you touched on it earlier, in the sense that one of the gifts of our sport is that we can play with all ages.
Yeah.
What ended up being a hidden competitive advantage for me is when I was 14, there wasn't a lot of boys volleyball in my area, so I had to start playing against the men.
Yeah.
And I had to get used to even if it was men's B, the level and the competitiveness and the speed of men who, okay, at first they play you and but then you start to beat them, and then they're pushing, and this from 14, 15, 16, and then onwards, by the time I got to college, I had spent 4 or 5 years playing against the speed of the men's game.
Mm-hmm.
And that also helped my jump to college and to overseas.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that the pros overseas, a lot of them start here over 17, playing with men, 16. And I think it's difficult to get out of with the club. You play 12s and then 13s and 14s and 15s, 16s, 17, 18, and then you have to make this big 4-year jump. And then to go pro, like another little bit of a jump. So this was, I don't know if it was by design. It wasn't really by design. It's just like coming from Colorado, when you're younger, you play the girls, and then, by 14, 15, men's B, men's double B, men's A, and ended up being really helpful for me in hindsight, I believe.
Yeah, and that's another point you bring up. When you're playing club, and that's where most of the kids are recruited from, they get noticed theirs. You're playing with your age, 15, 16, 17. When you go to college, now you're playing with men, 18 through 22, who have, they got 3 years of development, mental game, the strength, and now that's a big jump for a lot of freshmen to get used to.
Totally, and the BYU guys go on their mission and are 24. So you got all that mixed in there too. You have, but it's and all these COVID years, I can't keep track of how many years of eligibility these guys are getting. But it's awesome. I mean, all positive, but it's definitely a big jump, and then it's also can be a bigger jump to the international speed of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what stresses you is that reading. So.
Yeah. And now, looking back on your years at Princeton, what were some of the highlights?
Oh man, so many. I don't know. It was just such a magical experience. It really felt like getting the Hogwarts owl. Speaking of owls, but it was just amazing. Not only did I get have a chance to play a lot and kind of transform the culture, um, but I mean, volleyball wise, a highlight was beating Penn State for the first time in 35 tries
Oh,
or
wow.
16 or 17 years. Some great battles. I mean, Erin Russell, I can also say, ended every one of my college careers pretty. we had a bunch of good paddle battles against Penn State, but every season ended with Penn State either in the finals of the East Coast Championship or the semifinals. So we upset them a couple times at home in front of the university president with a packed Dillon gym with 800 or 900 people, and just showing volleyball to them at that level was great. We also had picked the memories when we travel out to do a California trip and picked up some big wins out there as a East Coast Princeton guys still getting it done. Played
Yeah.
with some great guys. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
That,
there
no, that
were
was perfect, man.
so many special moments.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And now, what were some of the, looking back at it, at that, that window, what were some of the more difficult times, like, because here's a kid from Colorado now out in Jersey.
Yeah, so tough. Injuries, I went through a wrist injury. I was out for many weeks. Um, but coming from having a year of, as I said before, real work, I was so happy to be living on a campus with all the people my age, going
Right.
to the dining hall. I was just so grateful and ecstatic for that whole entire experience. So it was difficult. The winters, of course, are very different kind of cold than in Colorado, that really humid cold. Hear us talking about the weather, but no, it was, and also the academics just crush you some days and
I bet.
weeks, and um, a lot of late nights, but
Yeah.
it was worth it, and it was such a special experience.
Nice. And now, what do you miss most about those college years? I've had a couple of players on, some seniors, and they said it's going to be the locker room. That's the thing that they're going to miss the most.
I think that's accurate. I think those just little moments of the dining hall meals after a win or a loss, or these little in between moments that you just never, and that's something people over in Europe are so jealous of. Is like you had a campus experience, you lived with other 18 to 22 year olds, and you got to eat and study and party and play volleyball. It was just, that's something that you don't find in a lot of
Yeah.
places.
Nice. And now, when did you start showing up into the national program?
Quite late. I graduated Princeton in 2015, and was an physical opposite. Um, it was one of these things where my mom just happened to live 15 minutes away from the training site in Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one year where I kind of would just keep showing up at the times where they would need extra guys or need a score person, floor my whopper, wiping floors, and was able to get my foot in the door just kind of by showing up and emailing. A couple of years, no, 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 you can't come. Okay, here you can come for these 3 days.
Yeah.
And you come full, and then you try to stay late. And in 2015, there was um, one guy got his hand stepped on, one guy sprained an ankle, and one guy had to leave for a contract early for Greece. And they were like, oh, well, we know Kessel's living a few minutes away. I was also playing beach fours, great way to get better. I was just happened to be out there, and they said, okay, like come in. And that's how I made my first roster at the Pan Am Cup in 2015.
Wow.
You can go all the way back and see like an old highlight video I put together, because I was, one got to train for a few days and then was the OH4 that got put on this roster to go to Reno, Nevada. And we ended up losing in the quarterfinal to Canada, thanks to Nick Delgado's Canada team. Knocked us down, but for that, we got knocked down to the 8th and the 9th place match, and I got to play that one. So all of a sudden, I had film to also help send to agents and stuff. And
Yeah.
so there was just so many little things like that. And then I was kind of in or on the radar a little bit more. And then 3 years overseas and in and out of the gym in that early phase when all the pros aren't back, maybe
Mm-hmm.
for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you're kind of out of there. And then Pan Am, kind of the second or third teams that they would send, I got on a couple of those. And then 2019, I actually got to play in Colorado Springs.
Oh, nice.
in a cup that I think didn't really mean anything necessarily for international points. So they brought in a bunch of young college just out of college guys, and I was lucky enough as a 3 or 4 year pro at that point to also be put on that team, and I got to play in my
Oh,
hometown
nice.
for the first time in my entire life, and as a volleyball player,
Yeah,
as
not
as a higher level player. So
right. Yeah,
that
not
was also
many men
super
can
fun.
say that in,
No,
for not many Americans can say they played in their home gym, home location.
yeah. So that was 2019 Norseca, and I was named best attacker at that tournament, and then that was kind of the next step into the next group,
Yeah.
and a lot of outside hitters who were way better than me at the time. I'm just kind of gritty. I've just hung around, and I can just, there's 6 or 7 or 8 guys who were better than me at that time, and for whatever reason, they decided to move on without volleyball.
Yeah.
I'm just here.
Oh
So
man. Well, still don't knock that. You're still at
no,
that level,
I didn't
That's
mean it like this.
oh
I
no, I
just
no worries, man. Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's and how did it feel to finally be able to, growing up around such greatness and Team USA to finally you earned your jersey.
Oh, and it completely earned, and I don't doubt that for a second. I didn't make my first start with the senior men's national team until I was 30.
Oh
So I'm
wow.
32 now, and so in again this first week of VNL sometimes is where younger players also get a chance to show themselves. The guys weren't fully fit or fully back yet, and so I got to go down to Brazil, 2022 VNL, and they sent us down there kind of thinking, oh, maybe we could, because you play 4 matches every
Hmm.
week, and maybe like, oh, maybe they come away 2-2. We swept that week. They played me in the last match against Brazil in front of again 10,000 fans in Brasilia, and Jake Haynes and some D'Agostino. I was playing with D'Agostino and Haynes and Erin Russel, and they all were just balled out. Josh Tuaniga, Tyler Mitchell, and these guys balled out. I kind of held my own, and we won 3-1 in Brasilia to start VNL week 4-0 and kind of really fire up the whole group. And I ended up traveling with the team that whole year because Thomas Jeschke was out with some personal stuff, and I traveled the World Championships that year. And that was that. Now I'm still in the mix,
Yeah.
so that was my shot, and yeah.
Excellent. And now what is it, what was that first moment like when you're in the gym, you're part of that, Team USA there, you're there.
Pretty unbelievable, and also a moment that I had worked for more than a decade, and with the idea of having that. And when you're in the moment, of course, you're in your full competitive present kind of mindset, moment, routine, and but it sinks in after, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. Oh
It's
man.
really, it's really indescribable. It's hard to put words to, but
I bet.
definitely a dream come true for multiple layers of it. So.
Yeah. Nice. And now, when you go from, club to college, that's a level of play that you just, it's a vast jump. What was it like going from club to now, or from college now to the national level? Is it like night and day level of play?
I think every level up is just a little bit of speed,
Yeah.
right? Especially in the serve and pass game, of course, in attack and defense. But it's just that it's just going to stress your reading. The
Yeah.
sets are faster. The it's the same game, but everything's just happening at a higher level, more physical.
Yeah.
So it definitely takes some time to adjust to, and it does. Yeah, it's I do think still and it's catching up, but for a long time the level of servers internationally, especially we're talking about 19 and under, was way higher, and that's changing a bit now. I mean, I think the U19 team had one of their highest finishes at World Championships recently for USA, but because of the way the different systems were with the
Hmm.
college, we're talking about the pro overseas, these young players at 16, 17, 18 are already professionals in Europe,
Right.
and just having to a little bit different to having to play for your paycheck than it is to just be playing for your club team at 17. So
Right.
they just bring a little bit higher level in service and IQ a bit because they've
Hmm.
also been playing faster speed.
All right. And now, just recently, I had Chaz Galloway, he's playing for Hawaii, and he was talking about this past fall. They went to Japan to play. They played a pro team and a college team, and he said they got their they got their butts kicked by the pro team, and it was a different style of play. And that was like, it was, they weren't used to that. Do you see that levels of different styles of play when it comes to the national teams, different countries that you play? When they played Japan, they didn't have the height, but they were just, their tips, just the way they attacked. It was like, it's like they played smarter almost.
Totally. And it's just this understanding and reading of vision, anticipation of the game.
Yeah.
We are a reading anticipatory based sport, number one. My dad is famous for saying, reading is the premier skill in the sport. And seeing these relationships and patterns, we've just seen them so many more times, and we're able to play with more vision, more understanding of the situation, more knowing when to press, when to not, what angles to take away. So you just really see that build and build. And at the highest levels, it's just just awesome to watch and be a part of, because it's also constantly evolving. It's always, now we're seeing a lot more of in and out of system, this kind of bent tip push game, and how does the block respond to that? How does the defense respond? There's the meta game that also changes a bit too. It's also interesting.
All right. And now, when you guys, when you go play pro and then you come back with the team, what's that like? What's that moment like? Everybody's getting back together, getting caught up. That must just feel like almost like a college feel again, getting back with the boys.
Yeah, it's super nice. And a lot of these guys, I mean, the main group has been together since 2014 or 2015, that core group. And so it's a little bit family. It's coming back. It's just a lot of love and joy and pure happy to see everybody, and then to embark and do something really challenging and really special, and seeking, to being our best.
Yeah. All right. And now, let's talk about going pro. Was that a no-brainer for you to go play pro after college, or was that something just sort of happened?
I think for a lot of players, it's this nice idea of, oh, maybe I could go for a year and kind of experience Europe and just see how it goes. And that's kind of how it was for me too. I had read a lot about the scene and trying to understand what it was like. And my agent, Kiara, helped me a lot. She first reached out. There was a team I was just a very physical jumper and attacker and server and blocker. And they were interested in kind of taking me on as a fourth outside hitter on a roster of a really good team. And that contract fell through, unfortunately. Just things I didn't really understand then and all these things I had to learn. And she just kind of really looked out for me and found me another opportunity in Switzerland, which is really difficult. And it's getting more and more challenging to get a foot in the door over here, because COVID took a lot of the leagues out, a lot of teams having to drop their budgets, or a league like Belgium, for example, is having trouble now with hitting the minimum salary for a foreign player with a visa, with a work, with all these things, with some of the laws change. So it's just and it's just a total grind. I mean, it's kind of like this minor league baseball. I see your hat.
Yeah.
It's totally the minor league kind of grinder's lifestyle for those first couple of years, especially as an American, because we are this kind of late bloomer. We do this university thing, and then we join the market at 22, 23. You really have to go over and kind of prove yourself. I mean, Erik started, the best libero in the world, started in Middle Deutschland, a mid-level team, German team.
Yeah.
And if you go back, David Smith started in Rottenburg, these like lower level German teams, or almost second league German level teams. And they just grind your way up, and it's tough. Oh. It is really tough. And you're playing for, you have your apartment maybe. And couple €100 a month, and that's maybe it, especially as a middle or a setter or a libero, even as an outside. And the opposite as you get started.
It's not when people think of pro athletes, it's not just show up and play. There's a grind to it. There is, it's it's not easy.
Completely.
Yeah, because you've got relationships, you've got family, because no American is playing here. Yeah.
So much, almost everything for a maybe, for a so. Yeah.
So we need an American league over here is what we need.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to see the opportunities for the women just exploding and popping up, and I think we're getting a lot of interest, and it's just going to take it's going to take things like your podcast, and just the ways that we can keep showing how much we love the game, how much we want to keep giving back to it and investing.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to challenge Erik and Taylor on their TikTok and shorts YouTube content stuff. You need to
We
get up
all
there.
can do better. We all can do better. We need to hire like little media teams to help us out because we are, it is so draining over here. We do have a lot of free time during the day, a lot of times,
Yeah.
so that does let us do that kind of stuff. I love to see how Mike Joe and Gage Worsley have done out of system,
Mm-hmm.
what they've done with that, with their downtime over stuff like that. Just awesome for the sport and all
Yeah.
the clinics they do in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a total.
If you could go back, so being a multi-year vet playing pro, if you could go back and tell
Yeah.
rookie
Well,
Cody, have some advice
all right.
from, what would you tell him?
I've gotten variations of this question a lot, and I ended up writing a book.
Yeah.
So that's what I did with the few years. Took me a little over 2 years to get all these thoughts together, these lessons. It's this journey that I've been on overseas and with the national team. It's a lot of these stories get lost, and I just wanted to share not only the letters and to my younger self, or even myself now as I revisit the book, but
Mm-hmm.
just what has stuck out from the journey. What are these principles that not only got me over here, but have kept me over here, and why do I do it? What's it all about?
Yeah.
So for sure, number one is just you have to cultivate and protect your love of the game,
Yeah.
and it goes from 12, from any age. It's just if without that, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So that's the number one thing: is cultivate and protect your love of the game. Don't let any bad coach, weird teammate, anyone somehow steal that from you, or take that from you.
Yeah. And the book is called 11 Ways to Get an Edge.
It is, yeah.
And what prompted you to write it?
Yeah, I just felt like I wanted to capture this journey and what, you've heard so many glimpses of it. I wanted to catch these stories and um, refine them and think about them and just what did they mean? What did I learn from them? And how can I spread this to younger players and the rest of the volleyball world in a digestible way? I just, because of my dad or just because of everything, just fell in love with the game. And I even wrote a thesis, my history thesis
Yeah.
in Princeton. Anyone can read that. My link's in my bio, but just to share, give back to the community in that way of just saying, hey, here's what I would have told my younger self or at any kind of point along the way. Here's what I've learned, and here's a bunch of the fun stories that have gotten me to this point. So
All right. And now, who would you say is the ideal person that should pick up the book and read?
I think any volleyball fan or any sports person, any sports fan, any young athlete, that was kind of the market for it.
Yeah.
The first half of it is kind of my story in case someone has no idea who I am, they can get their bearings. And then the next, 50, 60 pages is all about these 11 top lessons that I've learned
Yeah.
and want to share with others. And hopefully volleyball can open similar doors for them.
Nice. And where can they get it?
They can get it at the link in my bio. You get a 30% discount with code champions. Well, that will be the plug here.
Yeah.
Anyone who listens to the podcast, you get a 30% discount just with code champions. It's just you go on Gumroad on this link and you get it straight to your email. You can read it on your Kindle as a PDF.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hyperlinks in the book, so it's meant to be read in a digital format. Of course, you can print it out in every way that I was like that too for so long. I only wanted, but there's a lot of video links, a lot of blog links, a lot of different resources also linked there in the book. So.
All right. We need to get you to do an audio version of it.
Yes, sure. We can get someone to read some of these stories that
Yeah,
you're
we'll get
capturing.
Morgan Freeman to read it.
Yeah, here we are.
From a volleyball standpoint, do you have any pregame rituals that you do? Do you have a nap? Do you listen to certain music? What gets you, ready for game?
Yeah, I am a big preparer, so just diving more into as much film as I can on the other team. And anytime I kind of have nerves about the upcoming game, I'll usually lean on just getting more and more prepared and more ready. I do have a pretty more or less set routine, especially over these years. Luckily, we have a lot of structure, 1 hour out, we have a speech, about 45 minutes out, we start our warm up. there's a series of movements I've found to keep my body ready to go from 0-0, and that stays pretty consistent. But the other thing I learned from karch is, to have strong routines, but hold them loosely,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of random weird stuff can happen, and you don't need to feel like this robot. Karch was famous for kind of doing something completely different before every game. And there are
Okay.
players that just have these super strong superstitions that they hold on to. And, every kind of moment as it comes to you is kind of new. Of course, there are patterns of scouting and prep and thinking that I kind of have, but yeah, I think in terms of just pregame ritual, it just starts at about that 45-minute mark or so. Anything before that tends to vary.
All right. And I'm sure there's some people want to know, what shoes are you kicking these days playing
Yeah,
volleyball?
I'm kicking the A6 Sky Elite FF2. Can really recommend them. Sound mind, sound body. It's my A6 plug. They're looking out for me, and they've been taking care of me and in that way. So thank you, A6.
There we go. All right. And so, something else that's is important is, the mindset. Today it's the athlete is more than just physical. You have to have your mental game in as strong as your physical side of things. How do you keep your mind clear and, ready to go?
Totally. I lean a lot on books, a lot on this kind of world, and I go over all of this in chapter 2,
Yeah.
but I do go over a lot of what does it mean to be this mental game? What does that mean to be at your peak? And as a volleyball competitor, how do you stay there for longer periods of time than your opponent?
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it's a lot of also this on switch, off switch. So when I do walk away from the court, I want to make sure when I walk in the court, I want to give everything for that 2-hour block, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, energy wise. And then when I walk out, also have an off switch in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. And of course, film, of course, stretch, of course, other things. But this has been a really helpful thing for the mental game, for resetting, of leaving that practice where it is and starting a new day and a new match.
All right.
And I
Excellent.
recommend finding ways to to hit that switch a bit more and
Yeah.
just kind of go be a normal human. Because as much as we give ourselves over to it, we're more than athletes. We
Yep.
our identities too often, and of course, because we love it so much, we're so tied to our sport and being this athlete, this volleyball player, Cody Kessel. But if that's too strong, your whole identity can be on the line every time you step out on the court. So
Yeah.
getting some distance there and saying, I'm more than just this athlete. It's volleyball, something I do. It's not who I am. And creating a little bit of space there, especially as you get more and more into the higher levels, can be super helpful of reminding yourself,
Yeah.
what else am I as me?
All right. Yeah, I actually caught a on Netflix, I think last year, a show with about Marty Fish, the tennis player.
Oh yeah.
And basically, when it came to the U.S. Open quarter rounds, he was supposed to play Federer, I think, and he basically had sort of like the anxiety, mental health aspect. He just shut down and couldn't
Yeah.
couldn't do it, and that basically sort of opened the doors that, there's that whole mental health aspect of athletes that you got to sort of take care of yourself with.
100%, 100%. And it doesn't get talked about enough. It's because it is such a grind and it's so difficult over here, and the expectations are always so high, or that you put on yourself
Yeah.
and that the other teams have of you. I mean, Matt Henderson has been a vocal about this and his struggles with that, having to step away from the game for a while earlier. And USA Volleyball really backs us up with that. They make sure we have the resources in place to deal with that and
Yeah.
to take advantage of those,
Excellent.
of whatever it is we need. So props to them too. They've, over the years, the athlete services side of things has just gotten so much better every year after year after year. So
Excellent. And that sort of leads into sort of like, so I have a question from a coach that sort of back ends onto this. So, what, after a couple of bad plays, how do you sort of push through or reset yourself?
yeah, leaning on my teammates too. I mean, we remember this amazing part about playing a team sport is it's not golf. You're not, of course you can have your routines and these things that help you keep you in the present moment. But um, yeah, following a series of string of errors, the zooming out, one thing that's helped me a lot is this idea of regression to the mean, just the normal distribution curve. So if you have a bunch of these errors, even the best in the world have these moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's normal, that not suddenly you've lost everything, that, or there was even a clip the other day I heard that if you're doing something challenging and worthwhile, you're going to have 30 days that are terrible,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, or feel terrible, 30 days that kind of feel somewhat okay, and 30 days that are awesome. So some days those days just hit, and how do you, again, okay, in the moment, you're just trying to refocus and get on the present moment in the next play.
Mm-hmm.
And that focus muscle that has to be really strong of being where you are right in that moment. How do I reconnect with my teammates? How do I reconnect on this new ball? Um, but the other stuff behind it of this happens and this is normal, this is sport. This is why we love it. We don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah. That's why they
that's
play
the
the
beauty
game.
of it. And so going through these moments is how you get through this.
Yeah.
You gotta have those, otherwise,
Right. Yeah. How do you, if you don't have those lows, when you get those highs, they feel, that's the sort of the adrenaline right there. That's the one that keeps you motivated, keep going.
Totally, totally. So
Yeah. And then another question, more of a technical aspect of things. I watched a video or I saw something where you were talking about how over the years you've adapted, instead of that hard jump serve, you've got this wicked floater serve. What sort of, what kind of things have you learned to, perfect that serve?
yeah, good question. It's just kind of how my career has gone. I have taken on this role year after year of when I was my second year, first, second, third year pro, there were other guys on my team who were bringing, 115 plus, 120 heat, 105 plus, and I wasn't really that guy. And so I embraced the float serve of not only it was helping my team,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be a really nasty and effective weapon if you use it well. And
Yeah.
so it's just a funny wrinkle to my game. I'm super physical attacker and blocker, but I have a float serve, and that's become now because I can't really go back and start jump serving my whole career out on the court as a professional. It's a little bit, I've reached such a high level that
Right.
I can't, of course I can jump serve, but it's just not the level of the other athletes that I'm playing with and the teams I'm playing with. So
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it's actually been a nice balance for a bunch of different rosters that I've been on and a tool that can help the gym and the team that I'm on. And tips about it technically, I mean, you really are just trying to make it dance. And so hitting the center of the ball in relation to its line of flight, and how do we keep our approach line similar? Um, and
Is there any truth or any, have you noticed that, like I've read that, like if you hit the ball with the valve is pointed towards the ground, it's going to drop more. If you hit, does that
yeah,
have an effect?
it's a little bit more, I think with some of the old beach balls, this might have been true, but the modern balls are very weighted well. So it's a little bit of a myth, but if it does help some players because they get really hyper focused on the spot that they're hitting. So it can be useful in the sense of if you do line it up, it helps you visually maybe
Right.
hit that point and hit through the ball. So you can pick a seam, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, you're also, I also saw that you're part of Spikers Academy. What is Spikers Academy?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. This is an awesome project I've been working on with Dustin Watton. So in my spare time, this has been just recently in the past season. Dustin was a huge mentor and teammate of mine. He grinded his way as a libero through 13 professional seasons, and I learned a lot from him when I was in the first time in the national team gym. He was staying late with me and working with me and helping me find ways to get better. Before I went overseas for the first time, he gave me this kind of checklist manifesto of, hey, how can you hold yourself accountable? And make sure that you are still getting better through this kind of daily checklist. And he just was a mentor of mine. He launched Noisy Buckets in 2018, I believe, and has helped, well, countless liberos and people as an inspiration with his story and just the way that he's embraced stoicism and a bunch of these other, when he was years ago, he was embraced the more of a vegan, healthy lifestyle and different ways of moving forward with that. But he's built an amazing online platform. He loves the game. He's given his whole life over to it, and now retired, but giving back to the sport by just helping bring the highest level concepts from Europe and the top leagues more directly to players, and just so we are here to help all outside. I'm in the Spiker Academy here to help all outside hitters and opposites, and I think we have 14 full courses
Oh, wow.
right now, and we're just adding more constantly. And so we have free and paid content, but you can definitely check us out and just see kind of what we offer in the sense of we're trying to bring this taste of what we love about European volleyball at the highest levels and get it over to the US, to the youth, to Canada, to wherever else in the world as fast as we can, and just continue to share our love and joy for the game.
Excellent. All right. So, I've asked Erik this question when he was on, and I know him and Taylor have went back and forth. So now it's your turn. Hopefully, it won't be controversial or
I
anything,
think I
but
already know
what
what's
is the
going
most
on.
demanding position in volleyball?
Oh man, I have to go demand. If you're saying demanding, this is because we get into semantics here. If
Okay,
you say
so
the
all right, let's
most
go two
demanding
ways. You have the physical aspect and then the
physical,
mental aspect. Now, Erik, he said it was setter, hands down,
I
both
think
ways.
mentally, I think mentally very much it's setter. I think physically, wow, it's tough. It's depends on the team, but it maybe is opposite hitter in the men's game.
Oh, okay.
Just in the sense that, yeah,
So Erik nicks the middles because they sit out half the game.
I agree with Erik there. I think physically it's the outsides and the opposites that are doing the most grunt, like just physical on the body. Of course, if middles had to play all the way around, they really do take a beating as well, but
Hmm.
they do get to rotate it more. So
There we go.
yeah, I'm gonna say the pin hitters, but highly contentious, highly contentious. It depends on how hard you play too. It depends, of
True.
course you have one guy who is a bit more of a motor guy, maybe takes a little bit easier, but
All right. So now, we're done with the volleyball talk. What do you do off the court? What do you enjoy, over there in Germany?
oh, a lot. This city is amazing for its art, its history, its culture. There's so much in the city that I love to be able to just on any random Wednesday walk into kind of a different art space or world or and but I for a lot of years I love to read. So if anyone has any great book recommendations from the sports world or from any nonfiction, I got into Dune and Foundation a few years ago, these sci-fi series that you just get lost in. And
Hmm.
um, I'd say that's still a passion, but I've been working a lot on the Spiker Academy and just trying to, like you, share the game, try and find ways through modern social media and everything to keep spreading all that.
All
So
right.
that was after I finished the book.
All right. And, we didn't talk about this, but, you were like a semi-pro gamer back in the day, a COD guy. Do you still play
I
video
was,
games?
I don't. And,
No Twitch channel?
um, I should have been one of those. Maybe I should have just gone, but I did kind of stop that, and when I went overseas, I just more went the book route. But
Yeah.
I would probably maybe get too sucked into it, so maybe I got to stay away. Yeah.
And as I was like sort of finding questions to focus on or talk about, I noticed you got some mid-journey, some AI art in your Instagrams of like,
Oh
Darth
yes,
Vader with
yes.
the
This was
volleyball.
this was also, I kind of go where my passion and my curiosity leads me. In that time, it was. I think I ended up getting some kind of copyright
Oh
challenge.
no.
I had to stop with some of that, even though I considered it a remix and a parody and fair
Yeah.
use. But they were kind of like put the kibosh on that a little bit. But
Oh,
it got me. I just again want to find different ways to share my passion for the game and
yeah.
want to get volleyball out there more. It's just such a great game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish Chat GPT was around, 20 years ago when I was in school or 30 years ago.
Right. No, it's an amazing technology and challenge, and
Yep.
yeah, it changes a lot, or will maybe, but it's gonna take time like anything. So
Cody, you've survived the podcast, but before I let you go, like with past guests, I look for you to recommend a couple of people that would have a good story to come on and share.
I would love to hear, some more of the beach volleyball player world. So Guys like Casey Patterson or some of these players that inspired me a lot when I was younger. He came out to the Motherlode and just was like, oh, this is also men's volleyball in the sand. Like, this is so cool. Um, yeah, any of these. Skylar Del Sol, he's not a big podcast guy, but
Yeah.
he was.
Excellent. All right. Well, hey, good luck to you. And thank you so much. It was nice to meet you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Hey, she's a beauty.